Welcome back, everyone. By the end of today's lesson, you should be able to say, I can make and organize notes from a variety of sources. Over the last couple of days, we've been thinking a lot about what kind of sources are best for you to use for this project. We've also talked a little bit about how we might begin to cite those sources. Especially and most importantly, the ones that actually helped you learn how to make the thing that you've made. What I want to invite you to do today is to begin to take good notes from those sources. Now that you know which sources are most important to you and you know which ones helped you make the thing that you ended up making, I want you to revisit those sources and make sure that you capture or make notes that reflect which parts of your learning were most important to you, one source at a time. So I went into my websites and the books that I gathered and the videos that I looked at and the lessons that I took in and the articles that I read. And what I did was I revisited them one at a time and I took some notes on index cards, which I've taken pictures of, and I am sharing with you right here in this great little tool called Padlet. And I'll link to this at the bottom of today's lesson page so that if you're interested in playing with it, you can too. You can take your notes on index cards or sticky notes or even scrap sheets of paper. What's most important is that each note that you take lands on its own separate index card or sticky note or scrap of paper. As you can see, that's how I've taken my notes right here. What sorts of notes should you be taking? If you revisit my earlier lessons, you'll remember that I want to answer the questions, what is this thing that I've made or that I want to teach other people how to make? How do I make it? Who should make it? When and where? And why. So the 5 whys, who, what, when, where, why, or the 5 W's, and also how. If you take a look at my sources and the notes that I took from them, you're going to see that I've copied my notes word for word. So this particular note, the easiest and most common style of hand lettering, is brush calligraphy. The actual technique takes a great deal of time and practice to master, but to get started quickly and have some success, faux calligraphy is a perfect first style. That is what I'm going to teach others how to make in my project. I also learned a little bit about where it came from. Hand lettering has become an increasingly popular art form over the last few years. Anyone can use it to decorate everything from wall art to journal pages to greeting cards. That's where it's come from, but I also wanted to know a little bit about its history. And so I had this note. Calligraphy has been around for almost 3,000 years. Hand lettering is a little different, though. Calligraphy is based on penmanship or writing letters. Hand lettering is based on draftsmanship or drawing those letters. So these two cards right here, they kind of fit together nicely. What I want you to do is spend some time today going one source at a time and making notes. And I want you to take those notes word for word. This is important because sometimes when we ask young writers to make notes using their own words right away, they're not able to accurately record the facts. I struggle with that too. So when I make notes from sources that aren't my own, all of these are word for word from the actual source. Spend some time today making all of your notes. Make sure that you do that on separate index cards or sticky notes or scraps of paper. And in our next lesson, I'm going to teach you how to turn these notes into your own words. Because they're on separate index cards or sticky notes or scraps of paper, we're able to play with them and move them around. And I want to invite you to try that today too. Don't just make the notes, but think about how you might organize them. For instance, this particular note is the history of calligraphy and how hand lettering is different. And as I mentioned before, this one might be a nice one to follow up with because it speaks about how hand lettering is different. I could also talk a little bit about this one next. The easiest and most common style is brush calligraphy, and faux calligraphy is actually a little easier. So maybe I'll describe what faux calligraphy is next. I can also talk about this one little problem that hand lettering can often feel technical, but it's actually very creative. It relieves stress and helps us enter a state of flow and can result in beautiful gifts. That might be a nice thing to kind of conclude with after I go through the step-by-step process. But here we have supplies. So maybe I'm going to move this card here and we'll talk about the supplies people will need first. I can also maybe conclude with this piece about tracing paper, or maybe I'm going to put it here after supplies. This is why I want you to record your notes word for word and individually. Making those notes word for word will ensure that your facts are accurate. Making sure they're on separate note cards or scraps of paper or sticky notes gives you the opportunity to play around with the order that your writing will take once you start drafting. I'm going to keep playing with this a little bit more, the order of things today. And when we return tomorrow, or the next time you open up this lesson set, I will show you how to move these notes that you've made that are other people's words into your own. Have a good night, everyone.